one of the brave souls who has I don't know why he volunteered for this, but he's doing it. And he's doing it without abandon. He joins me now, Eddy Justice, who a newly minted member of the Missouri Board of Ed, State Board of Ed, and long storied career, wears a lot of hats, know him from many different things in GOP politics, and now he's doing a little public service on our Missouri Board of Education. Eddy Justice joins us now on the Tim Jones Show. Eddy, good evening.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Eddy, you're a very successful small business owner. If you go to his Twitter page, at Eddy Justice, you'll see that most importantly, he puts on there he's Penny Justice's husband. So, and I saw Penny and Eddy this week up at the Sharing Fund event, and we raised $1 gazillion again for St. Vincent's in Covenant House, Missouri. And got to talk to Eddy for a while, and he said he'd come on the show tonight. Eddy, you were working behind the scenes and in some cases in front of the scenes in politics, very active down in southeast Missouri and Poplar Bluff and all across the 8th Congressional District. Why did you decide to go ahead and do some actual public service at the State Board of Ed?
Well, I was one of the few that actually applied for the position over a year ago, and it took a lot of campaigning and a lot of get in touch with folks to try to get them to help me out with letters of recommendations and things. But, I've got 4 kids and 5 grandkids, soon to have 6 grandkids. And I saw the way that the system was educating them and the bureaucracy of the education program in Missouri. And I wasn't pleased with the direction we're going. I was especially not pleased with the culture of our educational system in the state of Missouri. When we have so many kids that can't read proficiently at the 4th, and there's so many things that play off of that number, such as people who are success ready when they get out of high school, and unfortunately, the number of people who are end up being incarcerated in the state of Missouri. We pay so much money for this; we should expect a bigger result. And one of the things I've said repeatedly in the past is, we have got to not settle for the status quo. And the teachers that are quality teachers in the state of Missouri have nothing to worry about from this Board of Education. It's the people who are willing to settle for the status quo are the ones that need to worry.
Eddy, like President Trump, Governor Eric Greitens has been fulfilling campaign promises, and that has driven a lot of people absolutely nuts in this state, from editorial board writers on down to, the left wing that controls the Missouri Democratic Party as well as the National Democratic Party. And they yell and they scream and they're like their hair on fire every time Governor Greitens does something that he promised to do during the campaign, which is so refreshing here in the state of Missouri, just like on the national scene. We're seeing that. And one of the things the governor said he would do, he was going to take on all the special interests. And, Eddy, when I say this to people, I think they're shocked, but I think you might agree with the statement I'm going to ask you about. The governor last year took on the plaintiffs' trial lawyers and had some victories with some tort reform bills. He took on organized labor and had victories with right to work and some other measures. He took on a lot of different establishments. But that education establishment, Eddy, they're the most powerful special interest in the state, aren't they? Because education reform, we're still waiting for those bills, and a lot of it has to do with our own party.
Well, I'll state it this way. Over the past several, if not many years, people have used the good of children as an excuse to accomplish their own agendas. I believe what this movement is actually about what's good for our children. Our children have got to succeed if we have a hope to have an economic future in this state. These children have got to succeed and our education system has got to change in order for our children to succeed. If they plan to stay out of prison, if they plan to have meaningful careers, if they plan to raise families and raise families that aren't completely smothered by the bureaucracy in Missouri. And that's why it's so important that we have to focus on these kids. These kids have got to be our final end, our final objective. And I really believe that we are at a point in education in the state of Missouri where we're really going to tip the tide back toward the actual good of the children and not toward the good of everybody else.
Speaking to Eddy Justice, who is one of the newest members of the Missouri Board of Education. Eddy, and that is right. That's exactly what this is all about. And, we do have some great school districts in this state. We have some great teachers in this state. We have children that are doing phenomenal and going on to bigger and better things. But I think you and I are concerned about what's in the Constitution of the state of Missouri, which guarantees a free public education to every child. And I think implied in that, maybe not overtly stated, but implied in that should be a good education, if not an exemplary education. And I am standing right now in the city of St. Louis, which, as you know, Eddie, I think has the highest per pupil per capita spending for students in the state of probably approaching $17,000, if not more, but is one of the worst performing school districts. And I know there's rural school districts that also are not doing so hot. So it's those kids, right, Eddie? They're the ones that are getting left behind in a system that is dumping millions, if not billions of dollars, but we're not seeing results that are fair across the board.
You're exactly right. But one of the things where that starts is the goals of the people who are helping direct our education, and their focus is what's so important. And that goes back to the number of people, I think, that have settled for the status quo. As you know, we have recently let go the commissioner of education in the state of Missouri. We're getting ready to look at the process of how we're going to move forward to get a new commissioner. And one of the things that I really believe is important with this new commissioner is a pragmatic approach. We've got to find somebody who is willing to look at, no matter how unpopular it may be, but is willing to look at techniques that work and have proven themselves to be effective in the state of Missouri and duplicate them. And also, unfortunately, we have to look at the other side as well. We've got to find the things that aren't working and take them away. We've got to quit doing the things that aren't working. And unfortunately, we've duplicated failure for too long in this state, and it's time that we move forward, find the things that actually work for the children of Missouri and duplicate them and make those things work. You know, we spend way too much money, billions and billions and billions of dollars to accept failure. It's time we stopped accepting failure and we start moving forward in a way that actually has pragmatic successes in order for these children to be success ready when they move out of our educational system.
Yeah, Eddie, I think the people would be shocked, and they usually are when they actually hear the numbers. You know, all the talking points are up in Jeff City during the session time about the budget is we need more money for education. We need more money for education. We need more. They don't talk about what's being currently spent on education, and folks need to know that our state budget is approaching $28 billion, and nearly $9 billion of that goes to education in some aspect, K through 12 and higher ed.
Well, you can narrow it down even farther. I mean, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education just proposed a budget of $6.1 billion. That's just for elementary and secondary education and special education. So if you get down to specific numbers, and what's even more interesting about those numbers is, you know, back in the legislative session when public education was wanting more money, and not wanting more accountability in order to prove that they were doing enough to deserve those more dollars, they were saying, yeah, our education is in trouble unless you give us more money. And yet when it comes down to trying to find new leadership for the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, come to grips with reality and truth and go with the results rather than say whatever you need to say in order to get more money out of the state coffers.
Yeah, Eddie, it seems to be a lot of focus until most recently on accounting and counting money and so little on accountability or innovation, right? It just seems like a lot of the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And it seems like that was pre-Eric Greitens kind of the attitude of Governor Nixon and, as I call them, the educrats. It was just give us add another zero or move the decimal point every year, but don't do anything substantively. Don't do any education reform. Don't think outside the box. Don't provide new opportunities for kids. And I think people would be shocked to know that happens here in the state of Missouri, where we have a lot of people who espouse and say they follow the Republican platform, which stands for things like school choice and charters and innovation and all that, but so many of them don't want to vote for change.
Well, you know, I call it double insanity, because not only are we doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, we're wanting it to be double funded. You know, so until you're ready to do something different and get a different result, then you can't expect to just throw money at a problem and expect it to be better. One of the good things that I see coming out of what's going on right now is we have what's called MSIP 6, MSIP 5, which is what we're currently under, the accountability program. We've had several different programs out over the last several decades, and MSIP 6 is being reviewed now to try to bring some accountability to the system. And I think with a new focus and new leadership, we may be able to bring some new accountability to the system where we're actually able to get a majority of our elementary school kids to be able to read proficiently. And until we do that, until we can get those numbers up, we are not going to be ranked anywhere close to the top 10 in states' education systems in the state of Missouri.
A focus on the children. Eddy, what's up next for the board? So the current commissioner of education was removed by the board. Where do you go from here? What's your responsibility there?
Well, this Thursday we have a meeting to determine the parameters by which we're going to move forward. I strongly see an open application period, and I think there's a lot of support for that on the board. And then to find the person that's the most qualified to be in that position. It's a highly paid position and one that we need somebody with a lot of skill in. There's been a lot of pressure to just hire somebody from Missouri, and I don't have a problem hiring somebody from Missouri to be the commissioner of education, but it's got to be the person that's the best for that job. You cannot limit your search to a finite number of 6 million people in the state of Missouri and expect to guarantee that you'll be able to find the person that can do the best job for the kids in the state of Missouri. If it takes a national search, so be it. My commitment is we're going to find somebody who's willing to use the tools that the legislature gives the Department of Education to do the very best job possible for our children and to educate them in a way that they can be successful when they get out of our system, in a way that they, no matter what level, whether it's technical school, college, or straight into the employment sector, we've got to find somebody who can educate them in a way that's going to do the very best for them possible. That's the least we owe our kids.
Eddy, you're a straight shooter. You're open, honest, and transparent, and I know you have no problem talking about any of these public roles because you believe you work for the people of the state of Missouri. Eddy, how can folks follow you and keep up to speed on what's going on with the Department of Ed?
You can go to the Department of Education website. You can Google the Department of Education website, or you can catch me on Twitter at Eddy Justice. It's Eddy, not Eddie. So at Eddy Justice, and I'll be glad to respond to anybody who is legitimately interested in the furthering of our children and is willing to join us in the fight.
Awesome. At Eddy Justice, Eddy with a Y, at Eddy Justice on Twitter. He will shoot you straight. He'll be open and honest with you. It may be a little tough to hear sometimes, but it's good medicine. Trust me, it goes down easy. Eddy.
Hey, a good fight's worth a fight.
That's right, Eddy, as you always say. Hey, thanks for joining us on the Tim Jones Show, Eddy. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's Eddy Justice. This is Tim Jones, the Tim Jones Show. The time always goes too fast, my good friends. One segment left, but it's going to be a chock full one. I'm going to talk to you about how Laura Ingraham has blown apart the credibility of the Mueller probe and this massive waste of taxpayer-funded dollars with all these Clintonistas running wild. Tim Jones here on the Tim Jones Show at FM News Talk 97.1.
This is the Tim Jones Show.
I'm a master legislator.
On FM News Talk 97.1.